Good morning from Athens, Greece. I am in an area known as Flisvos Marina. It is about a 10-minute taxi ride from the city center, from the Acropolis area to this marina. You saw the turtles that greet you at the entrance right there, and we will be walking towards the marina so you could see the beautiful ships and yachts that are parked in the marina. There's a bunch of cafes and restaurants. So if you're ever in Athens, I definitely recommend jumping in a taxi and coming to this area. It's a nice place to spend the day. And let's talk about news, of course, because that is why we are here, to discuss what's going on in the world. And there is no bigger story right now than what is happening in the Netherlands. So there's been a media blackout with the story in the Netherlands for the past 2-3 weeks. No one was talking about the farmer protests and the fact that the government was about to seize farmer lands. And under some bogus green reform BS, they were going to seize the property of farmers. It closed down essentially one third of all the farms in the Netherlands, which would lead to all types of food crises and just incredible stuff going on in the Netherlands. But it's become mainstream. Everyone is now talking about what's happening in the Netherlands, and that's a good thing. But it's also a dangerous thing, because now that this story is mainstream, you're going to have the saboteurs, the globalist saboteurs, coming out. And much like what they did in, say, the Ottawa protests, where they had people coming out with NAZI flags, and that gave them the talking point to say that this was some far-right extremist thing, you're going to have the same type of saboteurs now popping up at these protests. So everyone in the Netherlands, all the people that are with the farmers, you need to be careful. Keep your eyes open for these types of saboteurs, because they're gonna start popping up now that this story is all over the place. And we know how they work. We saw how they operate in January 6th. We saw how they operate in Ottawa, and they're going to try to pull the same tricks and tactics, where they try to create trouble, and then they get the media to run with far-right extremist stories, and then Rutte will get up in front of Parliament and say this is unacceptable, and we are going to fight the far-right extremists. And we know the routine. We know the routine. So there was a really smart comment on the video that I did yesterday with regards to the news out of the Netherlands and the farmer protests. And one of the commenters, I forgot the commenter's name, but you know who you are if you're watching this video. You made a very, very good comment, which was something along the lines of, for the past month or two, all we've been hearing from the collective West is talk about how evil Putin is, how evil Russia is, because they are blocking grain from leaving the ports of Ukraine, and they're going to create food shortages and a global food catastrophe. And that is what we have been hearing from the collective West, from the mainstream media, from the governments of the collective West for the past month or two. And now you have the Netherlands, the government of the Netherlands, actively working to decimate, to destroy, to close down 1/3 of the farms, and to create a European and global food shortage. No one's talking about how evil Mark Rutte is, or how evil the governments of the EU, the European Union, how evil they are, or Klaus Schwab, or the WEF. No one's talking about that. No one's saying Mark Rutte is evil. Mark Rutte is going to cause food shortages. He's going to cause a global food catastrophe. Of course not. Of course not. They actually tried to hide the story. There was a media blackout with regards to what was going on in the Netherlands for the past 3 weeks to a month. Now the story's out there. Are we going to hear calls for Mark Rutte to not create a global food catastrophe? Are we going to have the UN Secretary General call up Rutte and say, you know, what you're doing is going to cause food shortages? No, we're not going to hear any of that. But I thought that was a really good comment. Very, very smart comment from the video yesterday. So, yeah, the green reforms. This is all about green reforms. No different than the grift that's happening in Ukraine, is it? The whole climate agenda, to me, is, in my opinion, when the governments, they start talking about the climate agenda, and all these globalists are pushing the climate agenda, it's just all about centralizing power and laundering money. That's all it's about. No different than the MIC, the military-industrial complex, or the war in Ukraine and creating these sanctions packages and then funneling money to Elensky and his regime, only to have that money leave out the back door of Ukraine and to end up back in the hands of the very politicians that approved the aid packages to Elensky. And of course, the military-industrial complex makes out really, really well, as do these climate change companies and everyone that is on the board of these climate change companies or these MIC companies, or all the businesses that operate in and around these big companies, consulting to them, providing services to them. They all are staffed by the globalists and their friends and cronies and family members. It's all just one big grift. And of course, very much like the continuing effort to escalate the war in Ukraine, the climate agenda is all about removing our rights, maybe taking away our actual assets and properties while you centralize power. That is the climate agenda. The climate agenda is great for the globalists. They love it because it means that they could erode away our rights, strip us of our assets, while they centralize their own power through all of this legislation and these new regulations and these new laws, all of these things. And same thing happening in Ukraine, right? The same exact thing. You take away free speech, you take away people's ability to talk about what's happening. You're a Putin troll, you're a Putin shill, and you make it out so that anyone that reports on what's going on in Ukraine needs to be silenced, and then you create legislation and you create programs that centralize the government's power. So there's really no difference between the two grifts, that's for sure. But 750 billion is what Elensky is now asking for. There's a 2-day conference going on in Switzerland, a reconstruction conference. Reconstruction. What the hell are they reconstructing? Is that money going to go to the Donbass? No. Should this conference be talking about reconstructing the Donbass? No, they're talking about reconstructing the west of Ukraine and Kiev, which has, for the most part, remained untouched. But they're having this reconstruction conference in Switzerland. Of course, Elensky, he appears in his green T-shirts on video. And he's talking about 750 billion. That is what Ukraine needs. And where are they going to get this money? Well, of course, it's going to be the money from all of the seized assets from the Russian state that the West has. All of those frozen foreign currency reserves and all those yachts that they confiscated, and all of these things that the U.S. and the European Union and the collective West now have, kind of sitting there idle until they figure out what to do with all of these assets. And so Elensky's plan, of course, he's been put up to put this proposal forward. His recommendation to all the globalists in Switzerland is, let's just let's just take all of these assets that we have frozen, maybe print another 200 or 300 billion as well, and create a nice $750 billion pot, and throw that into reconstruction for Ukraine. They're not going to reconstruct Donbass, Lugansk, Donetsk, Kherson, nope. Zaporozhye, nope. Soon to be Odessa, nope. This money is going to be used to reconstruct the rump state of Ukraine. And of course, the money is going to go into Kiev, and it's going to leave out of Kiev. So you can see how useful Elensky really is. I mean, he's making the globalists money. That's why they keep him there, because they need him to appear in video wearing his green shirt and talking about what's happening in Ukraine, so then he can make the big ask, which is give us money, give us weapons. The perfect salesman, isn't he, for all of these guys? And you know that they have all of these frozen assets, like say the foreign currency reserves. They've got these assets sitting there, and they want these assets really bad. You know, they want this 300 billion really, really bad, but they can't quite seize it yet. They can't steal it yet because, rightly so, there are people in the U.S. government, in the Treasury, who are saying, you know, if you steal these assets, if you just outright confiscate them, it's going to destroy whatever trust we have left of the Western financial system and of the U.S. dollar. So that's the only thing that's holding them back. And so, you know, they have these 2-day conferences in Switzerland. And why do they have this conference? Because they're trying to figure out, they're desperately trying to figure out, we have all this money sitting there. I mean, they can see all this money, right? They see 300 billion sitting there, and they're saying, how do we get our hands on this money without damaging the financial architecture, the financial system that we have in place, and without eroding away at the US dollar's position in the world? That's their predicament. That is why they have not taken this money yet, is because they're still stuck on trying to figure out, how do we confiscate all of this without destroying the very financial system that has made us so rich, destroying the trust in that financial system. And so what I think is going to happen is, I think sooner or later, the greed is going to get the better of them, and all of these guys are just going to say, you know what, screw it, screw the USD, screw the financial system that we built. Who cares? I want the cash. And they're going to make a play at the money. Throw caution to the wind is what they're going to say. Whatever. Let's just grab the 300 billion. Let's throw another 300 in there. Let's get to 750 billion, and we're all fine. And whatever happens to the financial system. That's going to be what happens in the end, in my opinion. So yeah, Elensky, 750 billion needed to rebuild. Now you know why they built up Elensky to this like folk hero status, because they have to build him up to this folk hero status so that he can make big asks like what he's saying in this speech to all of these globalists in Switzerland. A virtual address. Elensky spoke at a virtual address, and he said that reconstruction of his country is a common task of the entire democratic world. All countries who can say they are civilized. We are uniting the democratic world. The outlook of free people always prevails. Reconstruction of Ukraine is the biggest contribution to the support of global peace. Zelensky said at the summit, where Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal identified the 750 billion as part of a three-stage plan. A three-stage plan. There is no difference between the climate agenda and the grift in Ukraine. No difference. It's all about washing money, stealing money, and centralizing power. All of it. All of it. That is why what is happening to the farmers is all about grabbing the farmland. It's not about, has nothing to do with nitrogen and green reforms. They want the land. They want to grab that land. And when they grab that land, when the state grabs that land, it's gonna dole it out to their oligarch buddies, right? That's what they're going to do. Neoliberalism at its best. That's why they're putting together these ridiculous requirements, no nitrogen and no livestock and all of these things. They want to drive the farmers off that land. It's a story as old as time. Going back to 2014, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here before I get to the UK. But it's all connected, it's all related. In 2014-15, you had the Maidan coup. And Biden decided to get involved. Let's say the Biden family decided to get involved in an energy company known as Burisma. And the energy players, they understood that there were a lot of resources in the east of Ukraine. A lot of resources, natural resources. But they had a problem. People were living on the land that these resources were located on, were located under. It's a better way to put it. And so they had to figure out a way. How do we, all of us, the Biden family, Burisma, other big energy players involved, the new Maidan coup government, Poroshenko in Kiev, how in God's name are we going to get people off of this land, out of these villages, and how are we going to get our hands on all of these natural resources in the very rich area of East Ukraine? How are we going to get our hands on all of these things? And so Biden made a whole bunch of trips to Ukraine, and eventually they came up with one solution. Start a war. Bomb them off the land. No different what's happening in Ukraine and what they're trying to do in the Netherlands. Maybe a different approach. In Ukraine, they wanted to just bomb the people off of the land so then they can get their hands on all the energy reserves and all the natural resources in the east. In the case of the Netherlands, they're using a bogus nitrogen legislation reform thing to drive the farmers out of business so then they can take that land. The whole green reform, save the planet excuse that they always use in order to grab more assets. Anyway, I went off on a tangent, but let's get back on track. Let's talk about the UK. Let's talk about Boris Johnson and his government's goal for regime change in Russia has now boomeranged back to most certain regime change in the UK. We had big news that two very, very high level Boris Johnson cabinet officials resigned pretty much at the same time, like minutes apart. They both resigned. You had the UK Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, and Health Secretary Sunak-Javid, both resigning yesterday. And why did they resign? Well, they resigned because they believe that Boris Johnson is leading the country towards the abyss, over the cliff. Quote from Javid, from his resignation letter: "Conservatives at their best are seen as hard-headed decision makers guided by strong values. We may not always have been popular, but we have been competent in acting in the national interest. Sadly, in the current circumstances, the public are concluding that we are now neither." Sunak wrote, The public rightly expect government to be conducted properly, competently, and seriously, implying that the current administration was none of the above. The senior official's resignations came just hours after an admission from 10 Downing that Johnson had known of multiple complaints about the predatory behavior of MP Chris Pincher before appointing him deputy whip earlier this year. Pincher quit in disgrace last week after it emerged that he had drunkenly groped two men at a private men's club. So is Boris going to jump on a plane and now run towards Elensky? Is he going to make a trip to Kiev and meet with Elensky now in order to avoid all of this this fallout? Isn't that Boris Johnson's normal routine? And then send another billion to Kiev? Is that how he's going to do this now, or is he going to stay in the UK and face the music? Maybe it'll be a good idea if Boris Johnson just finally resigns. Last week he said he's not going to resign. The only thing that will make him resign is if the UK decides to pull their support for Ukraine. So, Mr. Javid and Mr. Rishi Sunak, are you guys going to publicly make a statement that you want the UK to stop supporting this useless escalation in Ukraine, that you're pulling your support of the Elensky regime? Are we going to hear a statement from them with regards to what's happening in Ukraine and how that is boomeranging back to destroy the UK? That will get Boris Johnson to resign if they did that, but they're not going to do that because all of the Conservative Party, most of the Conservative Party is fully invested in escalation in Ukraine. What really unnerved them was this Chris Pincher thing, where this guy, this MP was groping two young boys, which is disgusting. But it's just another indication of the rot that has taken place in the UK government, in the Boris Johnson administration, in the entire UK establishment. It's just another sign of all the rot. Whether it's Chris Pincher or whether it's escalation in Ukraine, the whole thing is rotten to the core, all of it. So we'll see if Boris Johnson does decide to eventually resign, or if this will prompt the Conservatives to push Boris Johnson out, if that can even be done. But you wanted regime change in Russia, Boris, and now it's coming for you. Regime change is fast approaching the Boris Johnson government. Saying that, let's talk about what's happening in the UK. We have a report from the Financial Times, which is saying that some industrial plants will not survive if Boris Johnson's plan to ration gas is actually introduced. Gas rationing, which could be introduced under the UK government's emergency plan, would lead to the closure of many factories, some of which would be unable to survive even 2 days, the energy-intensive users group warned, according to the Financial Times. Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng is scheduled to discuss the details of the emergency plan with industry representatives later this week. According to an FT government source, the ministers do not anticipate gas rationing this winter. This measure, one official said, is provided for the extreme and hugely unlikely scenario in which Russia cuts off all gas supplies to Europe and Norway, then cuts off supplies to Britain as well. The view is that in the current situation, it is unlikely there will be gas shortages, but as we move into winter, things could change. Dave Dalton, chair of the Energy Initiative Users Group, which represents the UK's heaviest industrial energy users, said. So basically, the UK's entire economy is being held in the hands of Russia at this point. And their statement is saying, we don't anticipate Russia to switch off the gas to the EU, but if they do decide to switch off the gas, then we're screwed. Our businesses are closing. But you know what? Let's send another billion in weapons to Elensky. And let's put some more sanctions on Russia. Because we don't anticipate Russia to retaliate, but if they do, our economy is screwed. So, Slava Ukraina. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. You have the Netherlands talking about green reform and nitrogen emissions, and coal plants are being ramped up all over Europe. Doesn't make any sense, does it? Poland is actually making making the case that the EU should forget about climate change and they should just ramp up coal full speed ahead, because, you know, Poland has a whole bunch of coal, a lot of coal, tons of coal. But the EU, they put a stop to Poland's coal business because of climate, right? And Poland is now saying we need to put all of that stuff aside and we need to start getting back to coal in order to, of course, fight Russia. You know, Putin is the ultimate excuse. He's the perfect excuse for everybody. We want to fire up the coal factories because we have to stop Putin. We have to move towards green energy so that we can stop Putin and we can prevent his gas and oil empire from exporting to the EU. So we have to go green to stop Putin. Let's send some more money to Ukraine, because Ukraine is the only chance we have left for freedom and democracy. So $750 billion to Ukraine in order to stop Putin. You see where all of this goes? Everyone is using the war in Ukraine and Russia in order to push their own benefits, their own scam, their own money washing operation. They just use Russia and Putin. So now the narrative is we need to destroy the environment to stop Putin, according to Poland. The EU must put confronting climate change on pause for the sake of energy security, according to Prime Minister Morawiecki. The noble cause of combating climate change should take a back seat to the immediate goal of fighting Russia, Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki has said. In an opinion piece published in the Financial Times on Monday, he argued that the EU should significantly relax its greenhouse emissions rules. Poland recognizes the importance of fighting climate change. However, we must do everything possible to ensure that the virus of neo-imperialism does not develop in our own backyard, the Polish official wrote. Neo-imperialism, well, that's a new one. Neoliberalism, neoconservatism, and now we have neo-imperialism. Okay. So Russia's neo-imperialist. The neo-imperialists are fighting the neocons and the neolibs. So so we have to fire up the coal to stop Putin. And everyone in the Switzerland conference, they need to send $750 billion to Elensky so that they can stop Putin. Okay. So Finland and Sweden, by the way, are one step closer to NATO. There's an update on the Finland-Sweden NATO thing. They've signed their accession protocols, and now they have to move towards the stage of being confirmed by all the 30 member states, i.e. Turkey. Turkey, that's it. The other 29, they've pretty much rubber stamped it. So now we move to this 1 year long back and forth process of trying to convince Turkey to sign off on the last stage of Finland and Sweden getting into NATO. So I thought I would do a quick update there before we get into our clown world. What else should we talk about real quick? The Mexican president. This is an interesting story. We'll do this one before we talk about our clown world. The Mexican president, he vows to tear down the Statue of Liberty if Julian Assange is not released. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador says the symbol of America's freedom could lose its meaning if Washington refuses to drop charges against WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange, who faces the prospect of 175 years in prison if they take him to the United States and he is sentenced to the maximum penalty and to die in prison. We must start a campaign to tear down the Statue of Liberty, Obrador said at a news conference on Monday. For Washington to convict Assange would confirm that the world-famous monument in the New York harbor is no longer a symbol of freedom, he continued. So here's something that Sunak and Javid could do as they have resigned. Maybe they could tell Boris Johnson to release Assange. I think that would go a long way in cleansing the rot and the decay of the Boris Johnson government. That would be a good move. That would be a start. I think that would actually be the perfect start towards some sort of road to redemption. But will Sunak and Javid do that? No. Will Boris Johnson release Assange? No. So let's do a clown world. Let's talk a clown world as I walk past the cafes here at the Flisvos Marina. It's not a big promenade. It's a pretty small promenade, but you do have a lot of there's a boat, a yacht that is pulling in. The Lady D is the name. The Lady D. So this clown world, this has to do with the, that Euro symbol with the stars around it in Germany, that statue that is in like all of the photos and the stock images. I'm sure you've seen it. I'll put an image of it right now on the screen. Well, that statue is for sale. And it's for sale because it is too expensive to maintain. It's also vandalized a whole bunch. So the 14-meter tall statue, which was erected to celebrate the introduction of the euro currency in 2001, has since become a symbol of Eurozone decision-making. But when the ECB decided to move its headquarters to another location in Frankfurt, Germany, the central bank's bosses opted not to take the 50-ton sculpture with them. The artwork, a giant euro sign surrounded by 12 yellow stars by German artist Ottmar Hörl, has been maintained by the Frankfurt Cultural Committee, a nonprofit organization for the past 21 years. But now the statue is just too costly to maintain. It currently costs the committee some 250,000 euros every year to keep the statue up and running. At this very moment, the symbol is as well damaged and bedaubed, a spokeswoman said. We have contacted 110 banks over the past 12 months, and 90 didn't even bother answering in an effort to secure new funding to keep the artwork in Frankfurt. So they're looking for someone to buy this statue in order to flip the bill of 250,000 euros to maintain it. So they don't have any money. Basically, they don't have the money to keep this statue up and running. Now, I'm not a supporter of tearing down statues at all, but if there was one statue that I would support tearing down, this statue would be the one. This is it. Just take the damn thing down. Take it down. It's not a nice sculpture. There's nothing artistic about it, if you want my honest opinion. It's a freaking Euro fiat symbol. with a bunch of stars. There's nothing good about it. It's an eyesore, and it's a symbol of globalism. And what was the word that the Polish prime minister used? Neo-imperialism. There you go. Neo-imperialism. A bunch of unelected officials in the European Union. Neo-imperialism. That is what that statue symbolizes. Christine Lagarde and Van der Crazy and all of those globalist clowns. Tear that statue down. No need to have it. And you save 250,000 euros to boot. So that is the clown world, everybody, coming to you from the marina, Flisbos Marina in Athens, Greece. Definitely come, check it out. Great place to spend the day. Have a coffee. You can have your coffee right here. Watch the boats go by. All right, check out Alexander's channel. Check out the Duran's channel and go to the Duran.locals.com. 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY on all Duran merchandise. Take care.